I've been thinking lately about wheelchair awareness. This came up because I was doing a search and the title wheelchair awareness came up. And I started thinking about a lot of things. Like what are we doing to create wheelchair awareness? You know, and I think that there are people who don't have any disabilities and don't use a wheelchair who are doing some of that awareness. Recently in Madison, Wisconsin, some uh, leaders in the community worked to increase and get a grant for uh, taxis that would be wheelchair accessible. And so in the next few months, Madison, Wisconsin will have some more opportunities to be able to travel around the city, which is very limited at this point. So it's and that's advocacy in the area of wheelchair accessibility. But what other kind of things are we doing? The wheelchair users, what are we doing to create more awareness? And there are so many industries in which we need to push forth, we need to push ahead and continue to create awareness. The question is why? Why do we want to create? Why do we want to work towards wheelchair awareness? And I think it's important because it's going to benefit all of us, first of all. And I think the world is going to be a better place for wheelchair users that come after us. So it's not only for you and for me, but also for those who are coming behind us and who will be using a wheelchair, whether it's part time, whether it's sporadically, whether it's full time. It doesn't matter. But the world needs to continue to open up for us. And that can't happen unless we speak, unless we figure out a way to grow in that awareness. One of them that I recently talked about was advocacy. Looking at those areas in which it's really, really lacking. Like in Madison, Wisconsin, some leaders stood up and say, hey, wheelchair users are really grounded because there isn't much tools for them to use to be able to get around. And what is available is very limited. So why don't we and can we develop some kind of grant to grow, accessibility so people in wheelchairs can get around and do what they need to do, like work and just general life, because we want the same things that everybody else wants. Truly, you know. So, and we got to think kind of small, go from small to big. And, if you use a pharmacy, is there a counter that's low enough for you to be able to pull up and do your business there with for your transactions? In the grocery store that you use every day, is there anything that can improve for you to be able to get around better? Are the counters at your level? Are the aisles wide enough? Are the main and most important products reachable for you? Is there anything that the store could do to flip-flop some of the products so they're more accessible? So it's some of that in all of that. And how do we do that? And I realized that our skills, yours and mine, are going to be different. Some people express themselves better in writing. So you could write to the pharmacy, you could write to the store, you could write to the bus company. Just one little thing that I did on my own. I took a bus and, the public bus, I was going to a meeting, and I noticed that they were only locking me down in 2 points. That's it. And, front and back. And I'm like, wait, if you only locked me down in 2 points, my wheelchair, my power wheelchair is going to roll because my casters are not locked. So that puts me in danger and others because if I come unlatched or for whatever reason, and I go flying, I could hurt somebody. My power wheelchair is pretty sturdy. So I wrote to the company and I said, hey, I've been noticing that the drivers are only locking me down in 2 points when it should be 3 to 4. So they had a meeting and they talked to all their drivers, and now they're locking us down in 3 points, which is really critical because only our large wheels are locked, not our casters. So if they make a sharp turn, our wheelchair is going to move. And that is problematic and a little scary for me. I don't want to end up in the middle of the aisle or crooked or something. So it just took that one email that I sent to the company, and now they're locking us all down in 3 points. So it's those kind of things that are really important for all of us to do in whatever capacity we have. So just sending that email or writing a letter, and it doesn't have to have your signature on it. It can have other people's signature. It can have yours. It can have 5 other people that agree with you that the counter should be adjusted or that the aisles need to be wider, or in a clothing store for the clothing to have more space for wheelchair users to be able to get through instead of running into the clothes and getting all tangled. So I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but it's a little embarrassing. But anyway, and it could be verbal requests too. If you feel that you have that skill to be able to professionally request something in a business, then go for it. Look for a manager or look for the client services or whatever, and make those needs known. And I think that needs to happen more and more often. And granted, there might be people out there who are tired of doing it over and over again, and they're not heard. So in that case, it needs to go from individual to a group pressure for a business or institution to really to listen to us, that change needs to happen. And, we need to find each other sometimes to create that force, that positive force to be able to make the necessary changes. And that in itself can be a challenge. I've heard people trying to get a support group together or get a group together, period, and it's taken them a long time, and it hasn't happened. So I think that individually we have superpowers that we can use, advocacy, letter writing, and verbal requests. And then there's us together doing something, whether it is requesting that a park be more accessible, whether it's repair of sidewalks that are in crappy conditions, whether it is a lack of transportation in our county, in our city, in our province, in our state, whether it is just creating groups for us to meet and just have fun together and socializing in a place that is accessible, for us to be more visible so that society says, hey, we're going to create this a multi-purpose building, and we truly want it to be accessible. I've seen this wheelchair group, and they meet in XYZ building or they meet in XYZ place, and I think it would be cool to make sure it's accessible to them. So, to make ourselves visible, and sometimes strength comes in groups. It truly. So that's something for all of us to think about how to. And if it's difficult for you to do it on your own, find one more person to help you get this idea off the ground. And creating events. Now, I'm not a person to create like big events or whatever, but I can drag people together and get them to talk to each other and organize and work and get something, off the ground. So, really important for us to be visible. I know that some of us have challenges, and it's harder for us to be out and about. But, it's important somehow to make our voices heard so that the world becomes more accessible. We have huge projects and small ones. The airplane for us to fly from one place to another is really risky because the airlines have been breaking our wheelchairs, whether it's manual or power. And we need to continue to push that. And that can't happen with one voice or one person alone. We really need to do that together somehow, whether it's connecting with All Wheels Up or other organizations. Say, hey, I support you. We want to have a meeting about this. We want to set up a All Wheels Up committee in our town. We have a big airport nearby, and we want to work with management or whatever it might be, for All Wheels Up not to be just a small committee out there trying to fix, the airline issues that we have with them. So, and there's the big ones, and then there's the smaller ones. But, driving a car, oh my God, you in a wheelchair, you want to drive? I don't think so. How many times have I heard that? And right now is one of those projects that I am working on to be able to get behind the wheel again. And I can't tell you, all my doctors favor it. We're doing it slowly and working on the things we need to do, which is PT and then looking at the training that we need to do, all that kind of stuff. So, cars, I think, need to be flexible in terms of being able to convert them into something that is accessible, not only for me, but other people who have needs. And the cost of that is falling on us. And how can we keep the costs down, for us to be able to practice and be able to do what everyone else is able to do, or practically everyone else. It's that, and it's some of that, and it's all of that we need to continue to work on. I so wish that, I see a lot of people who have elevating wheelchairs, which is awesome. It's kind of new. I think in the last few years, maybe 5 years. And, to me, all power wheelchairs especially should have that elevating piece because it's going to give us independence. It's going to give us accessibility to so many things that are not accessible for us at this point in our homes and in businesses and out on the streets. So just the wheelchair industry itself is another area in which we need to advocate. it's people who are not in wheelchairs who are designing the wheelchairs. So, and they haven't spoken to us. We haven't spoken to them. So how do we reach out to each other and improve the industry that's trying to serve us? One thing I've been talking a lot about is the wheelchair industry and how important it is for them to start to always, 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 when they're creating a wheelchair, to install those things that are going to give us safety, such as the brackets that we need for when they tie us down, latch us down in a van or a bus or a train. You know, those kind of things need to happen for it not to be an afterthought, or for it not to be just for those who can pay for it, for it to just be an essential part of the wheelchair, just like the armrests are, just like the wheels are, just like the headrest can be. So, you know, the brackets and lighting on those chairs, and for it to be visible, for it to have springs, so we, so that, it doesn't hurt us when we're going on rough terrain. So it's all of those safety features, better wheels, it's those things that we need to advocate. And starting from our own world, which is the wheelchairs themselves. Forget about all the other industries. But, and then we go into other practical businesses such as clothing. And I get so frustrated when we're talking about clothing, and when they create clothing that is accessible, they slap a price on there that is just prohibited for those who really need it. So it's those industries that we need to figure out how can we impact them in a way that we can bring the price down. And one of those ways is for us to purchase those items, so that the more they're purchased, then the more they can bring the price down. So that's just one way. But also requests from us, whether it's verbal and writing or advocating for the cost to be brought down, because a lot of times it's taking things off, not so much putting things on. Sometimes I have to cut a shoulder and put some Velcro on there, and then they slap, $25 onto the item. It's like, why? Why? Instead of buttons, they have to put buttons on it anyway, so they slap some magnets on it, and that's $30 more on the item. So it's like, why? So I just question industries that in a way take advantage of us, and it shouldn't be that way. And we need to continue, and that's why to me it's urgent for us to work in a way that we built into our lives wheelchair awareness, so that we have a value just like any other human being. That, when someone starts an industry, to think of people in wheelchairs and other disabilities, that they include us, because we are a force. We are a purchasing force. We are part of the daily community and the activities of daily living. And so, even just a simple industry that makes bathrooms, for them to also have a department that works on designing bathrooms for the disabled or people in wheelchairs, power wheelchairs or manual wheelchairs, it doesn't matter. But, this is what I'm talking about. Wheelchair awareness. How much are we individually and as groups working in this direction? And I think that it's time, folks, to really push for accessibility, for awareness, for understanding, for compassion, for inclusion in so many ways. So I just wanted to leave you with those thoughts on wheelchair awareness and see what you think of this podcast and what you think you could do, or what, sometimes we like to point fingers to other people, or they need to do this or they need to do that, but really it starts from us, from myself, what kind of things I can do. And the one thing I did was to send that message to the bus company and say, hey, they're only latching us down in 2 points. And I've already rolled and hit the wall on the bus. So if they could latch us down in all 3 points or 4 points, that would be much safer. And it happened. I did make a small change. So think about what you can do, whether it's individually or establishing a group in your community and working towards increasing wheelchair awareness. This is Lisa from Power Wheelchairs for Success. I want to welcome you and all who are listening to this podcast. This is a podcast, I think, number 2 or number 3, somewhere around there. I'm hoping that it is useful and is supportive to you, and that it might have given you some ideas or encouragement. Please feel free to like the podcast, to make comments about the podcast, also to subscribe. Subscribing and liking helps people who are creators on YouTube. Those are the 2 things that support us statistically on YouTube. So please feel free to like and to subscribe, and we will and even mention topics that you would like us to create, because that also helps us, structure our time in the list of topics that we try to cover. All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, and I hope you come around again to listen to our next podcast on Power Wheelchairs for Success.